This is Hall of Fame jockey Sandy Hawley. Joe Tilley Sports coming up.
Joining us on the program, a pair of Canadian morning show legends, Humble and Fred, and a two-time Canadian Olympian is among those stepping up for Wayside. Joe Tilley Sports coming up. And welcome once again to the program. Our special guest today, our co-host, the Humble and Fred Show, which they started in 1989 on CFNY. They moved on to CKFM or Mix 99.9. Then it was a Mojo 640, back to Mix. The host of Humble and Fred Sports Show on Sirius XM and on podcast. They just celebrated 10 years as a podcast. Humbleandfredradio.com is where you go to see them. And by the way, Howard is a hell of a golfer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Humble, Howard Glassman and Fred Patterson. Humble and Fred, guys, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having us. Very nice of you.
Joe, we always like to be asked to do anything, and especially kind of you to ask us to do your program.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you guys, you just celebrated 10 years together as a podcast. 3,000 shows. We were talking about this before we came on, and the question I asked you, Howard, is how many shows? Period. I mean, when you take this back to the beginning, and I believe it was 1989.
Yeah.
How many shows have you guys done?
Well, you know what, Freddie? It's funny that it was a great question because I've only ever thought about the number of podcasts we've done because, as we've said recently, Fred and I, most people don't do them very often. They do them once a week. But I thought, well, 20 years of doing 250 a year, we're close to, 10,000, 9,000. Wouldn't you think we've done that many shows together?
Is there not an app for that where you can put in that information and it spits out the number? There must be.
We used to have calculators.
Yeah, exactly. We would need a calculator. But I just figure, okay, 10 years of 250s, 2,500, 5,000, 8 to 9,000 episodes of the Humble and Fred Show over the course of 32 years.
Okay, how did it start? Tell us about the beginning.
The beginning of the Humble and Fred Show, I had been at CFNY since 1979. I was the sportscaster there exclusively. And then they hired Steve Anthony to do the morning show. And more and more I sat in with Steve because he was doing Much Music at the time. So he would get to the radio station about 2 minutes before his show on CFNY. And he would need somebody to banter with or someone that actually had some information about what was going on that day. And I sat in with him and got the feel for being sort of a sidekick guy. And after Steve left, they tried a couple more morning shows. And then Danny Kingsbury, who was the program director at the time, wanted to hire Howard and Jeff Lumby from Montreal to come and do the morning show. Jeff didn't want to come. Howard did. They thought, hey, Fred can work with Howard, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Was that a good capsulization?
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So
I made the jump.
How did you end up there? Sorry.
I'm sorry, Fred, go ahead.
No, I said, I made the jump from sportscaster to sort of co-host sidekick type of thing, which was great for me because at the time I sized up pretty quick that if you were going to make some serious money in this business, you had to do more than just sports on the radio. So that's sort of
Fred. I will tell you this: not only has Fred made some serious money, but he has kept that money.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's kept a lot more than me. I'll tell you what, I'm not a financial advisor, but the worst investment I ever made was a divorce. Anyway, Joe, what was your question? Please go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, how did you end up at CFNY? What was your journey there?
I'd been doing stand-up comedy and radio through most of the 80s. But I had been a morning man at a pretty big major market radio station in Vancouver. I had done mornings in Calgary. But at the time that I met Fred, I'd only been back in radio for about a year. I had been living in Los Angeles. I had been doing nothing but stand-up, and I kind of missed radio. I missed being part of a team, and I missed the collaborative aspect versus being a comic where even your best friends are hoping you are hoping you bomb, especially if you're on before they are. And I had been back in radio, as Fred mentioned. It's a pretty small industry, Joe, as you very well know. And I had worked with this guy that had been Fred's boss, had been a good friend of mine. And he just sort of had an instinct that Fred and I, after this other fella didn't want the gig, he just thought, he thought Fred was funny. He knew how I worked in radio, and he thought we would be good together. And I got to tell you, we've been reminiscing quite a bit lately because of our 10th anniversary of the podcast. But one thing that always sticks out in my mind, I'm not sure if Freddie remembers, but we were very nervous, both of us, the first couple of months we were on the air together. But besides the fact that we were nervous, we started making each other laugh almost from day one. Fred has made me laugh every day we've worked together. I don't mean like fake radio laughter, which is what most, crap you hear. Like real laughter almost every day that we've worked together. And I think I make him laugh too. But that was sort of my first memory of that summer, is that we were nervous. I was still smoking cigarettes. Here's how nervous we were. I was smoking cigarettes. We could still smoke in the control room. And he was so hyped up, he started smoking cigarettes too for like a month. He didn't even smoke. I just got him smoking. It was great.
That's what you said is key there, because to this day, if we don't think something is worthy of a laugh, we don't laugh. We'll just continue on our banter. The fake laughter thing it's really been that's been part of our show. No fake laughter. Yeah. While we're on that subject, because you listen to a lot of morning shows, and you hear stuff that's just all right, and then no. I think it's a nervous reaction for a lot of people.
And Joe, I think we kind of always wore that as a bit of a badge of honor, that if we were laughing, it was because we truly thought it was funny. And secondly, we told the people around us, don't you dare laugh at anything. We don't need a laugh track. And so the show, for better or worse, and sometimes worse, was at least honestly funny. At times it was funny. And maybe because, it was an honest representation of who we were.
I wanted to bring in just a quick clip because Vic, run. We got a promo from
Vic's a great guy. Everyone knows Vic.
Vic is the voice for us. He's the voice of God. We hear him talking during the show. But should run that promo, Vic.
FM 102's Humble Howard and Fred Patterson.
Oh, sure. You could listen to another morning show.
But will they play Toronto's hottest modern rock?
No way.
Will their news, weather, traffic, and sports be as entertaining?
I don't think so.
Will they have as much fun as we do?
They can't even spell fun.
Will they be as intelligent as we are?
Okay, but we'll definitely be more fun.
Way more. Wake up with Humble and Fred on Toronto's Modern Rock, FM 102.
Moscow Circus of fun.
Okay, what are your thoughts when you see that?
I know what you're thinking. Nice mullet.
Yeah, here's what I think. I don't mind that commercial because we did another one where I put on a dress. And at the time I thought it was funny. And since then I've learned my wife hated that commercial that I was in the dress. You'd have to see it, but I got a hockey helmet on and a shaving cream, all the things you do in the morning, and a dress. And my wife used to say to me, why do you have to wear the dress? Why didn't Howard have to wear the dress? That's ridiculous. So the commercial you just played, even though say what you want about it, I liked it way more than the one where I was in a dress.
Yeah, what's weird
is... Okay, we got the dress one.
Here's and we're here to show you how our new morning show on FM 102 reflects Toronto. While you're getting up, we'll be talking about news, weather, traffic, sports, fashion, entertainment, And of course, we'll be playing Toronto's hottest modern rock.
And you're sure this is the best way to show 'em?
Absolutely. Now that looks like mornings in Toronto.
Yeah, I feel so stupid.
Trust me, Fred, you look great.
Wake up with Humble and Fred on Toronto's Modern Rock, FM 102.
Yeah, that's the one in the dress. Again, here's the weird thing, if I may, just before we talk about, I didn't even know I had a mullet until I look back on it now. I'm like, I guess that was a mullet. I don't know why hey, okay, you wore the dress, but who am I? Do I think I am my Miami Vice guy in that? Like, why am I wearing that suit?
Howard, that was cool at the time. But I thought this is just funny. I'll put on the dress. I'll go with the flow. Little did I know it was going to hurt my family so much to have me appear on television in a dress. But again, enough for that. It's just, I'm being honest here.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm being honest. That hurt so much. That dress bought you the pool, Patterson. Come on. That's the dress that's the house the dress built.
Yeah.
Joe, is that the end of it, Joe? Do you have more questions for us?
No, that's it. That's it for the.
All right. Well, thanks to Vic and Joe. We appreciate it.
We got some other video later on, but we're going to get to that. So anyway, you guys have been together 33 years. How do you maintain a relationship like that? And Howard, you touched on earlier that you weren't able to do that with your first significant other.
No, that's right. Well, I think we maintain a relationship because we know what we do best. Fred's, very, buttoned down, like make sure everything runs, by the book, by the rules. He takes care of all the money in our relationship and the business that we've built. I take care of the clients. Fred from day one knew that I was going to be the host guy. I introduced the songs and I did all the business, and Fred was the sports guy who was also on the show and being funny. And you know what? You can only have one guy like Fred and one guy like me. And to his credit, he recognized that before I did. I'd always been the host of every show I had been on. It had been the Humble Howard show, and now it was the Humble and Fred show. But I also, at some point, got my head around the fact that it was going to be better if I did the show with him than if I didn't do the show with him. And that's why 10 years of podcasting has been so successful for us, because by the time we started this, on this day 10 years ago, we knew what our roles were, and we very naturally, Fred's the CFO of the company. I'm the sales manager, and these are the roles that fit us best. Fred?
Yeah, well said. And do you go beyond the 10 years of the podcast, Joe, when you ask that question? How have we?
Yeah.
For 30? Yeah. I think it gets back to what Howard says. We basically have the same sense of humor. So we never really had content conflicts ever, really. Did we, Howard? It was like, you thought it was funny, I thought it was funny. Or if there was some sort of gray area that, geez, I'm not sure, we were always willing to accept what the other guy thought. And most of the time it panned out because, again, we came from sort of the same mindset and sense of humor. Plus, Howard and I, we've known each other for 33 years. We casually socialize, but we've never really hung out together to the point where it was like, I work with this guy, I'm with him all the time. We never really had that either, which was a good thing, but our lives were completely different. He was on the golf course, I was up north, that type of thing. I was a young father, he wasn't, on and on and on.
Was there ever a time when you guys thought that this is enough, we're going to split? Or have you always, that's never entered in the equation?
Well, no, we did split up. Fred we took this contract in 2003. We were recruited by the Death Star, Standard Broadcasting, and no, it was a great deal. It was the contract of a lifetime, and both of us jumped at it, and it didn't work out. It was in fact, it did give us a lot of money, but it didn't give us the path that we thought it would take us. So Fred got fired in 2005. I got fired in 2006. And we didn't do a show together from 2005 until 2011 when we started the podcast. in brackets, we did a few podcasts together, but we weren't a regular group of, radio guys for the better part of 6 years. So we did have a 6-year break from the show and, really didn't see much of each other. Again, once in a while we'd get together and record some nonsense. But toward the end of that time in 2011, I started reaching out to Fred because I knew the radio show I was doing was in trouble. And I wanted to see if he was interested in maybe coming and working with me again. Fast forward, I got fired, he got fired, but we'd already sort of started speaking about could we work together again and what would that look like? And in the summer of 2011, we sort of found ourselves building this little business together, and we just sort of took up where we left off.
But as
Your
far
thoughts
as
on that, Fred?
well, I mean, just to feed off what you said, did we ever think, okay, that's enough? No, we were never in that position that during the Humble and Fred show, oh, this is enough. We're done with it or go our separate ways. And, and a lot of duos, I think, have experienced that. But again, I think we're pretty intelligent guys. Doing a radio show in the morning, a lot of it is it's actually acting. It's, you're putting on a show. And the thing is, you might have periods of time where you're tired of doing the show. You might be tired of the other guy. You might be tired of management. You sometimes think to yourself, oh my God, do I want to do this anymore? But then you think, this is my job. And it's one of the greatest jobs on earth. It pays me great money. Get a grip. Every job involves ups and downs and stresses, and you just have to have the mind capacity to just get ahead of that and go, hey, what are you thinking? This, and I bet you there's a lot of guys in radio that wish they'd have thought that way rather than just flying off the handle and giving it up or picking a fight with their partner or whatever that may be. But so to answer your question, no, we were never in that position because I think we were always ahead of what we had and really appreciated it.
I will say this, though. There was a time in late 2004, 2005, that it wasn't the best time for our show. We were in a very bad spot management-wise and being consulted-wise. And as much money as we were making, it wasn't really the best period of time for us creatively. And I think for you personally, it wasn't easy on me. It wasn't easy on you. And, if there was ever a period where we would have maybe thought to do something with the show or maybe, find some other avenue for it, that was it. But that really was less about us as individuals we need to quit and more about the situation we found ourselves in.
That's one of those great radio stories you hear about, our broadcasting stories, Joe, you might be able to relate to. It's, Standard Broadcasting comes after us. They offer big contracts because they want the Humble and Fred show. And then they showed us the playlists, and we thought we can work with this. It's not a big detachment from CFNY. It is, but it is different than CFNY, but there's a lot of music here that sort of is the same, and we can make this transition. Sound good with us. So they want Humble and Fred. They want to pay us all this money. This format looks pretty good. We weren't there 2 months and they changed the music. And it was probably 4 or 5 months. This consultant comes in from Cleveland, doesn't really know the Toronto market, doesn't know the heritage of Humble and Fred, and he's trying to change what they spent all this money on. It was really, it was fascinating, actually.
Listen, before we leave this, though, I think my favorite part of that whole period early on was, again, Joe, we keep saying this really was the contract that guys in our position have been waiting for. So we're ecstatic, this was prior to the divorce, had lots of money, and then I knew we were in trouble. I don't know if you remember this. It was literally 2 or 3 weeks after we start. The boss calls us into his office, and he wants us to use his girlfriend as our news person. And 3 weeks after starting with her, we're in his office, and she's crying because she's not getting to be on the show as much as she thought she was going to. And at that point, I went, we could be in some trouble here. Because when you And remember what?
And remember, well, prior to that, she was in the room with us
Oh yeah.
and making faces all the time. So if we'd crack a joke or one of our funny Humble and Fred asides, she'd roll her eyes or shrug her shoulders and then remember some morning she started like actually Howard doing your job, like directing people.
Oh no, I know. So
It
there
was
we
something
were.
else.
So there we were, 3 weeks into this contract of a lifetime. Where, by the way, they had to pay us. One of those great sports contracts. Excuse me. They had to pay us for every day of it. We weren't. So when we took the job, we said, okay, but you can never fire us without paying this entire contract. So 3 weeks after we start, we're there with the boss, his girlfriend, and she's I'm not talking about theoretically crying tears because she's not getting on the show as much as she thought she was going to. And meanwhile, me and Patterson are like, what? Can I swear here? Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. So me
You
and
don't need
Patterson
to
are
swear.
like, what the fuck have we gotten ourselves into? Because now we can't give the news girl shit because she's the boss's girlfriend. And it went down from there, Joe. Anyway,
that's not what you sign up for.
No, not what we signed up for.
Right.
And then we had another meeting one day in a restaurant, and the general manager at the time, through the program director, who was a pretty good guy and knew we were getting screwed around, he was telling us how we should do the morning show and every so often play a sound effect here and a sound effect there. And it's just not what we did. It just wasn't the Humble and Fred show. We didn't do that type of morning zoo stuff. We just didn't. And it was almost like, wait a minute, you were instrumental in hiring us, and that's not even the show that you hired. What are you talking about? So anyway, enough of that.
Enough of that, Joe. Joe, one thing you should know about Humble and Fred, we don't do cheesy sound effects, okay?
I got that.
Sorry, Joe.
It's good. Well, speaking of critiquing and going to other people for critiques and getting work done from okay, so you had a situation. It became sort of a bit of a battle of the morning shows a few years back, I guess. You guys and Opie and Anthony in New York. The way I understand this is that you guys, somebody had either hired you guys or made a suggestion to you guys that you could go to New York, listen to these guys, and maybe offer some critiquing. Is that how it worked out? Tell me how this came about.
No. So Opie and Anthony were these big famous guys in the States on first in syndication, then on satellite radio. And years before this incident, Fred and I went to New York with our bosses. This was at another radio station because a new boss came in and he thought it would be instructive for us to go to New York. This is before the internet or the internet was around, but it wasn't quite the way it was now. So we went there to listen to morning radio, and they wanted us to listen to Opie and Anthony as an example of how we could get better. And, Fred and I sort of had talked on the air about how that trip really wasn't much more than a free trip to New York, where I threw up out of the window of a cab. But that's a separate story, Joe. Anyway, we went there and we listened to them, and they were way over the top, way beyond anything we could do. They were that morning we listened to them in New York, Freddie. They had a woman trying out vibrators or something. But our takeaway was, no matter what our bosses wanted us to learn from these guys, the bottom line, they just weren't very funny. So that was what and maybe you could take it from here, Freddie. We were talking about this trip on our podcast about 6-7 years ago, and some of their listeners heard it.
Yeah, some of their listeners heard it and let them know. So then they started talking about us on their show. And, the usual thing, these two hacks up in Canada, what do they know? But I would say to this day, the United States a lot different than Canada. And Opie and Anthony, you cannot argue with their success down there, but they were that typical American zany zoo show. our show was better than
Right.
theirs. I'm sorry. We're funnier.
Yeah.
We're smarter than they are.
Yeah.
And we just did that style of show. And I take nothing away from their success, but I would never, ever back off the fact that if we were American and put, side by side to them at an American station, our show would have been considered better. And I'll go to my grave with that.
Right.
But anyway, we're these two guys up in Canada, and we're telling the story that Howard just told. And we said that during it. We thought, they just aren't that funny. It gets back to them. So they, with the aid of their social media army, start attacking us.
Right. It's something called.
We have some.
Well, I was going to say. What they did, Joe, before you play the clip, is their audience did this thing they've been doing for years to other shows called Jocktobering them. And they basically flooded our Facebook page with all this horrible stuff. But what happened is, unlike any other morning show they had done this to, we took it very well. We thought it was funny. In our typical, we didn't run away from it. We started talking about the fact that they were doing this to us. And when Opie and Anthony found out that we weren't critiquing their show. We were talking about the story about going to New York and having to listen to other radio shows and how lame that shit was. Well, they actually ended up kind of liking us because they thought they were going to, when they actually heard us talking about it, they ended up thinking, these Humble and Fred guys, they're not so bad. And plus, we didn't run away from the criticism. So maybe that's part of the clip you have.
Okay. So we're going to do, actually, we're both sides of that. So we're going to play the first one, Vic.
That way. Nobody knew that.
No, of course not. Of course
not.
not. And I do agree with them so far. A lot of morning zoos, especially. Maybe we're guilty of it here from time to time. I think
you're in a good mood.
I think it's rare though,
more than you might.
Right, but morning zoos are absolutely guilty of doing that, where they all just go, "I think it's time to laugh," and they just all start laughing. Right. So I understand that point, but that's not us.
It was really more about us having to go with these two guys we worked with. We basically got a free trip to go listen to New York radio because that was before you could just sit in your computer
and stream it.
Stream it. So we were being consulted to death at the time, and you and I talked about on the show recently about having to sit down and listen to a bunch of New York shows, including Opie and Anthony.
Right. And we sat in a hotel room, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. We got up. We had to, first of all, hammered. That was
God, we're really famous, man. Guys are flying in from Canada to listen to our show in a hotel room to maybe pick up some pointers.
They're sampling the show.
Did we ever have to do that?
No.
Oh my God.
However, it's a suggestion that I wouldn't frown on. But
and then started this little business.
This could be the first time in our careers, but I think we owe you an apology.
No.
Why?
No, but here's why you don't apologize, because the attention we've gotten from you and your fans is worth all the service in the world. So as far as apologizing, all we can say, and we gave you guys, we actually talked about it on our show, and we didn't really understand this whole Jocktobering thing. Of course, we've learned about it now. But I think I have a question for you two, and I think I'd ask this of your audience. What is the normal routine of guys that get targeted? Because I know you guys don't. You actually didn't tell your audience to do this. It's part of the bit. But what do most guys do when they get this onslaught?
They pretty much they shut down their Facebook page. Yeah, they do that, and then they do a lot of crying, I believe. And you guys took it great.
Yeah, it was funny. You guys talked about it. Like, most of them don't talk about it and just make a joke about it. And you read some of the funnier ones, and you read some of the obnoxious.
So there we go. And so they had that definite, kind of uncovered right there, right?
And it's funny. That this bit has come up, or this story of these two guys and us have come up, quite a bit over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And the bottom line is, again, it's very Humble and Fred. Rather than run away from it, we thought, well, first of all, it was our instincts. We think it's funny. In fact, I'd forgotten about this until just this moment. Here's the difference between us and the guys that we've worked for. One of the guys we worked for didn't want us to talk about this.
Right.
Do you remember that? When it all blew up, we were like, we couldn't get enough of it. But our boss at the time, it doesn't matter who, his thing was, we shouldn't draw any attention. And we're like, what are you talking about? Of course we want to draw attention to it because everyone in their audience is talking about us.
And a lot of that goes on in the business. In fact, when we worked for a radio company prior to this, the last sort of Toronto, well, no, I guess we were at Chorus at the time. I'll say that. Anyway, one of the announcers there, a female, was actually in Playboy magazine one month. And they thought the best idea to take advantage of this was not talk about it. And this was a rock radio station.
That's right.
Get a load of this. A rock radio station. Well, and I can tell you, it's Joanne Wilder because it's out there.
Yeah, Q107.
Q107. She was like the midday announcer, a sweet girl, was in Playboy magazine. and the mandate, nobody talk about it. Can you imagine that? A rock radio station in the fourth largest market in North America. Your midday girl is in Playboy, and the word is don't talk about it.
Oh, that's right.
It was mind-boggling.
The only thing that would be worse. The only thing worse than that is if Derringer was hired by fucking Aerosmith to replace Steve Tyler, and he didn't talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to get those stories.
Yeah. So, that whole thing happened with Opie and Anthony and all this attention and thousands of different people tuning into our show. And the advice we got from our boss is maybe we should just let this die down. We're like, no, that's not what's going to happen. Next question, Joe.
Well, I want to talk about the business because it's changed a lot, obviously. And you talked about Chorus, and, for us, it was Bell and, Rogers and Bell and Rogers and Chorus, like what's happening today, good for the business?
You know what the answer to that question is, Joe. My goodness. Yeah, it's not about the product anymore. It's all about the bottom line. And you know what? Listen, Howard and I have had this conversation many times. We feel for it. What a horrible position to be in. During our heyday or our most lucrative days, the internet wasn't around the way it is now. People weren't streaming music digitally. There was no podcast. You had it all to yourself. Can imagine being in the radio business nowadays and having to deal with this? People can get music where they want it, when they want it, how they want it, spoken word, exactly what you want to listen to, these niche podcasts. How do they compete? So obviously revenues have plummeted. They have not. The only solution to this is throw lots of money at it, but they're not prepared to do that. You got to invest in people in radio, but they're not going to do it because revenues are down. They're not going to spend money to make money the way that business is structured because it's all about the next quarter.
You're a guy, Joe, like a lot of us worked for, big broadcast companies. And, at some point, someone like all of us, you get to a certain age and they know they can get somebody to do the job that you were doing for maybe a lot less money. And then, so what do you do after that? Well, and we've said this about podcasting, but years ago, a guy like Joe Tilley or our friend Mark Hebscher or any number of people, Dave Hodge is doing a podcast, McCowan, all of a sudden, people like us, I should say, have a voice. We can continue to broadcast in some way, shape, or form. Like you guys are doing here with your Joe Tilley show and like we've been doing now for just past 10 years of operating like a mom and pop broadcast shop. But what it's done is given us an audience. And, we don't normally share numbers with people, but, we did a show last Thursday that celebrated our 10th anniversary. And I'm just looking here. It's already been downloaded 35,000 times. Well, I'll just tell you, there's not a lot of radio stations in Toronto that have 35,000, quarter hours. There's some, but we're talking about just the very biggest ones. So not only do we have a place to broadcast and a voice, we have actually figured out a way to get an audience.
Right. And it's a growing thing too. And I feel like it's the same way with me, having kind of like my own little TV station right here. Right. And having the guests that I want to have and talking the subjects that I want to talk about and not having any limitations as to what I can do and what I can't do. I used to get 5 or 6 minutes a night. That was it. Right.
And Joe, keep doing it because Have you seen 590 Sportsnet radio with the fan, whatever they're calling it now?
Yeah,
they just released they just released a new lineup, and a lot of it is their podcast material. And I think that may even come to TV. I mean, really, revenues, especially for commercial television too, are plummeting at such a rate that you're going to see more and more of this. They're going to come to guys like Joe Tilley and say, we need to fill a half an hour, wherever. Can we put your show on our platform? You watch, it's coming because it's cheaper for them.
Right, but I don't want to take a substantial decrease in my audience, Fred. I mean, by going on conventional radio. I mean,
Zinger,
right?
Zinger coming up.
I'll tell you. So the last radio station that we had to deal with, a small station in Hamilton, and I can guarantee you those numbers I just quoted you. When we were on that radio station, we had more people downloading our podcast than listened to the whole that radio station the entire day. So you're right. I mean, there are, and so is Fred, by the way. Having a show like this on a regular television outlet, it won't be long before that's the norm. Because why not?
Keep doing it, brother. Yeah.
Because content is all that matters. And audiences don't care about how it looks as much as they once did.
Because they just how does it look? You watch a lot of the news, like CNN and a lot of these places. What is the show now? It's 3 boxes like this with people talking from remote areas.
Yep.
So the thing is, if they don't have to pay people, or they can just license Joe Tilley to put this on their platform. And you know what? May seem far-fetched right now, but listen, if you'd have told me 3 or 4 years ago that The Fan was going to be a series of podcasts during the day, I would have laughed at you. But that's basically what it is.
100%. And especially, Joe, when we started, forget the couple that we did about 10 podcasts between 2006 and 2011. But when we started this business, like I said, it's kind of made me laugh. I said to Freddie on the weekend, we're talking about something. I said, when we started, it never occurred to me you could only do this once a week. But that's what most of them do. So, but the other thing about when we started, no one knew what a podcast was. There was an Apple iTunes list, but there were so few on it. The biggest podcast in the world at the time was Adam Carolla. And we were it was all new. But now, not only is it a phrase people are very familiar with, when Freddie and we used to walk up to friends of ours like you, and we'd say, Joe, we're doing a podcast. They'd say, what is it? And we'd say, give me your phone. We'd show you how to do it. Now everyone's listening to Spotify and Smartless, and everyone's got a favorite podcast. So it won't be long before, as Fred said, radio stations will just be a series of podcasts, and television will want products like yours.
It's a natural progression. It's the way things are evolving, and that's just the way it's going. Right?
Yeah, man.
Just one more point on that. With radio and television stations, the overhead is staggering. When you think about like a radio station, to transmit that signal off the CN tower, that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And think about television, the overhead costs of the studios and the equipment. And look what the internet is at. Look what we're doing today. Look at the picture quality. Look at the sound quality. And there's better stuff even out there. All of a sudden, this stuff can be done for pennies on the dollar. Of course they're going to gravitate that way. Why wouldn't they?
Right. And it's all about growing, and it's like, of course, they missed the boat at the big corporations who run television and radio in the country now. It's all about cutting costs. They need to, if they had invested in people who have been around the block, people who have a story to tell, people who have something to say, people like yourselves, right? Like guys who've been around for a while. Those are the people that those are the guys that people are going to listen to. Right, those are the guys that people are going to want to watch, not the guys who are coming out of Humber College and are being hired for like 50 cents and replacing guys like McCowan and guys who've been around a long time. Go ahead, Fred. You're going to speak on that.
Well, I was going to say, music on the radio. I almost laugh when I put a radio station on and I hear music. To me, it's almost funny now. Like, really?
Yeah.
all the places I can get music, I'm going to go to this radio station. What radio is and should be and will become is a place for storytelling. Forget music. It's gone off that medium. It's all about storytelling. But to have good stories told on your radio station, which is the future, well, you got to pay people to tell good stories. That it's going to cost money to get people to open their mouths and tell good stories. Not just anybody. You're going to have to get good people to do that.
And there's nothing wrong with the people coming out of Humber, because that's, the problem with the people coming out of broadcast schools for both television and radio, especially radio, is that they're being taught that no one wants to hear what they have to say, but consequently, they're the whole, like Freddie and I have been to some broadcast schools talking to kids, and their teachers will say things like, well, no one wants to hear about your, personal stories. And then Freddie and I always say when we get them alone, that's all people care about. But if you're not training kids to do that, there's no one. Listen, all three of us, we got maybe 20 years left on the planet. There has to be some people behind us that can do the job correctly. But I think the market is going to, like it does with everything, is going to will out this. What I mean by that is, the money isn't there, so they're going to look for cheaper options. This is a cheaper option, and eventually there'll be younger people that can do this for a lot less money.
And there will be money because, again, the overhead done properly, the overhead is going to be way, way, way cheaper. Like, there's not a radio station today that couldn't have all their talent at home doing the show and shut down their studios. Don't pay for that office space. Don't pay for that studio you might think you have to build. You don't have to anymore. So maybe they can draw from those.
It's helping.
They can draw from those revenues. I don't know.
It's happening in the corporate world. People are doing work from home now. So I mean it's obviously makes sense. It would work in this business as well. And we have sponsors. You guys have sponsors. I have sponsors. We have an audience that's growing, and it's growing. For me, it's growing exponentially. We get some, really good numbers on Facebook. So the advertisers get some bang for the buck. It's pretty hard to guarantee that on commercial radio or television these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
The kind of money they have to spend.
I noticed that thing coming out of your head right now. What's it say? Lake life? Like, are you doing your show from the lake?
Life.
Are you doing the show from the lake?
I live at yes. So here's the deal. Okay, so I'm going to quickly.
Joe's got it figured out. Don't be embarrassed, Joe. Look at that.
Is that Lake Ontario?
That's Lake Ontario.
Is that Lake Ontario?
That's Lake Ontario. This is the Port of Newcastle.
Oh, nice.
It's a good spot.
Okay.
Really
hey, Joe, do you also have a pillow that says "Live, Love, Laugh"?
Probably.
I'm sure.
Probably. Yeah,
I think
it's okay.
Like, do you have one of those, Fred? I bet you do.
The live, love, laugh thing. Yeah, that made that was widely accepted in this home a few years ago. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Well, listen, guys. I want to thank you for taking the time
our
to be
pleasure,
on the show.
Man. That was fun.
I loved it. Right. It was enlightening, and we had a lot of good stuff in there. I think
we're really great guests.
Quality broadcasting. No, there's some quality stuff in there. The kind of stuff you don't get on conventional radio and television these days. Am I right?
Oh, you're so right, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I want to check the before we go. There's a couple of things. Yes. So, Fred, if you ever split up, here's first of all the phone card, which can come in really handy these days.
Can you imagine? That was actually a thing, a phone card.
Yeah.
Wow.
A phone card for 50 cents.
Wow.
Look at us.
And it actually has some value. And then Humble, if you ever get a new partner, it'll have to be another Fred. I saw this in your Twitter feed.
Yeah.
You and Freddie Couples.
I don't know what I was thinking. I'll tell you what, that was a cool look back in 1998, Joe, or 97.
Yeah. And how was the golf game?
I had a great year. I finished off the year my lowest handicap ever. Played a lot of good golf. I won a tournament. I was good. I had a nice year. How about you?
Steadily improved. I've still got a 20 handicap, but it was about 24.
No, you
so
don't.
Honestly, Howard, I had surgery on my heel last year and an rib injury, and it's been chipping away.
All right.
And Fred, I want to get your quick thoughts here on any Toronto sports teams that stick out for you. Anything you want, like heading into the Leafs and Raptors season? Is there anything that's on your mind about with regard?
We talked about it on the podcast this morning, and I say this to anyone who will listen. I have no time for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. I don't even want to think about them till April, because no matter what they do, it means nothing until the playoffs start. And I just read in the paper, the Leafs, you talk about bad timing. The Leaf players have gone to management asking if they can loosen up on their dress code before games and on travel. And I'm thinking, talk about bad timing. Shut up and play hockey. Put your suit on and earn your money. You know what I mean? If they had just won the Stanley Cup, come back and talk to me about, can we not have to wear a suit to the game? Right now, I have no time for that team.
It's not
anything about them.
Yeah.
No, it's just they've just got so much to prove. I don't want to hear anything until April. That's my position on that.
Humble?
I don't care about anything to do with
He never has.
I never have. I grew up in Moose Jaw. Everyone in Western Canada hates the Leaf, hates Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up a Boston Bruins fan, but I am a fan of my boy here, and I feel for him and his team, and I've said this on the show for 32 years. I'm not a Leafs fan, but I'm a Leaf fan, and you can't argue with a group of supporters as loyal as the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, that latest playoff loss hurt me like none before it. I'll tell you, it'll be a while. It'll be a while before I get over that one.
I know you and I and other Leaf fans. Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for being on the program. As guests on Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show, we have some clothing for you from our pal Jeff over at Classica Imports. He's got some great Italian clothing, so we're going to hook you up. Gift certificate for Jeff. Drop by and see him. It's good stuff. Yeah, man.
I had no idea.
Howard's going to Italy in about a month from now, so he'll be able to put on the Italian attire as he arrives in Italy.
Exactly. We'll have all the proper scarves.
Hey, although that's funny, wearing Italian clothing to visit Italy reminds me of that girl I once knew who took a bag of weed to Jamaica on a holiday.
Risking getting caught. Getting caught.
Yeah,
that's right. That's funny. Look at you.
Yeah.
You're still funny. He was funny this morning. He's funny now. Why am I yelling? Okay, Joe, thanks very much for all your help.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate
we're
this.
Here for
This is
anytime, my brother.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you, friends.
Congratulations on 10 years. Fred, Humble, it's been a blast. Thanks.
Thank you.
Remember, we're all in it together.
Yes.
Yes.
Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet.
Hey, I'm Canadian rocker Tommy Gunn, and you got more Joe Tilley Sports coming up.
Well, there's a big event coming up November 6th in Hamilton at First Ontario Centre, a 5-kilometer family fun walk run. It's called Step Up for Wayside. Well, we have the co-chairs of the event. Joining us are Reed Coolset, two-time Olympic marathonist from 2012 and 2016. He is a 14-time Canadian champion. He grew up in Hamilton, where he lives with his wife and 2 kids, currently competing in ultramarathons. He coaches at Bayfront Endurance, a free training program that meets at Bayfront Park on Tuesdays. Also joining us is Mike O'Riordan. He's been working as a medical journalist for 18 years, currently medical journalist for the Cardiovascular Research Foundation, a U.S.-based nonprofit organization. He's also worked for WebMD. He's a self-proclaimed, ungifted, yet enthusiastic runner for more than 25 years. He's run in 10 marathons, including New York City and Boston. He was born in Toronto, but he likes Hamilton better. Welcome, Reed. Welcome, Mike. It's great to have you on the program. I love that. Toronto, like Hamilton better. But first of all, Reed, you're joining us from somewhere. Where? Tell us where. Tell us where you're at.
Yeah, so it's an island called Reunion, and it's about 500 kilometers east off the coast of Madagascar. So it's really in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's far. It's far.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, a guy who joins us from Madagascar for the cause. How about that?
Jet lag too.
Right. Well, first of all, I want to get into a little bit about your career, Reed, because it's pretty impressive. But first of all, I want to talk about the big event. It's the third annual Step Up for Wayside coming up on Saturday, November 6th at First Ontario Centre. First of all, I guess maybe we'll start with you, Mike. Tell us about Wayside House.
Yeah, Wayside is it's a nonprofit. It's a men's recovery house, and it's just based in Hamilton, Ontario here. And what they do is it's for men that are recovering from addiction, drug and alcohol addiction, and it's a sober living house. And they go through a program, this core program, 5 to 6 weeks long. And it's education and just sort of a chance to sort of kind of like reboot in a way. You know, there's addiction counselors there, provide stability, direction, support. They have a continuous program that kind of runs beyond the 5 to 6 weeks. That's about 3 to 4 weeks long. And all in all, it's about a 2-year program. The men won't be in the house for 2 years, but it's about 2 years long in terms of, you know, some of the continuing education and the continuing outreach that these guys have for you know, recovery from drugs and alcohol. And you know, it's just a wonderful, wonderful house, you know, a good group of people, good group of directors. And yeah, you know, as just sort of, you know, drugs and alcohol didn't take a break during COVID-19, and these guys are still in need of support. So that's the house there in Hamilton.
You know, I went through a treatment center myself some 29 and a half years ago or so. And it was, you know, it was a life-changing event for me, and something that has helped to change my life, and I know my family's life as well. And you know, I work in a treatment center today, ART in Toronto, Addiction Rehab Toronto. But I know yourself, you have some experience with addiction, and you want to share your experience just a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'd love to. Yeah. Congratulations on your 29 and a half years. That's amazing. Yeah, I was the same. I was kind of in the same boat, you know, about 14 years ago. I guess I was 31, 32, 33, kind of when everything was really coming to a head. Alcohol was sort of my thing. And yeah, it almost started from the day I started drinking, you know, until I kind of got help at 32. You know, I got sober in Toronto. I went to a treatment center in just off of Madison, on Madison Avenue in Toronto, and it was life-changing for me as well. You know, it was the type of thing that kickstarted my recovery, and I met a wonderful counselor in there, and he connected me to a sponsor, and it connected me to AA, and you know, I've been sober ever since, and it's life-changing. I mean, I don't know if I'd be alive today if it wasn't for the house that was available at the time. And you know, it's just so much, you know, that these guys do. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Reed, tell us why this Wayside is important for you. Why this charity is important for you.
Yeah, just having something that's based in Hamilton obviously hits close to home. I had 2 friends who suffered from addiction, who I ran with. One in high school who died of an overdose a few years ago, and one who I ran with at university who went to a very similar program as Wayside, lived in a house it was supposed to be a year, but actually COVID cut it short. But that's all right. He changed his life around, and he actually works at that house in London now, doing really well. So I've seen what something like Wayside can do, really change someone's life. And my friend who was dealing with drug addiction, who I went to university with, yeah, he's back running again, and he did this big run for charity. So it just really turned his life around, and so I've seen the power of the recovery and the help that that Wayside provides.
We all have our, recovery's been a game changer for us. It's helped us to have a life that we beyond what we could have really imagined. But it also has the tragic side. I have a son that lost his life to this disease. He was died of a fentanyl overdose in 2014. I have another son who's been clean and sober for 20 years. It's like obviously this is a charity is close to my heart, and there is a way out. And of course, the most important thing is to reach out and ask for help. And Wayside is a place where we can reach out, ask for help, and go to and find the help we need. So that's it's awesome. It's an awesome charity, and there's going to be a way. At the end, I'll tell you how you can help the charity out and be part of this run. But first, Reed, I want to get back to your career. You're a two-time Olympian, and Vic, our producer, has some video of you running. I think it was when you ran the second fastest marathon ever by a Canadian. It's 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 55 seconds in Fukuoka, Japan. I believe at the time you also matched at the Toronto Waterfront Marathon when you finished third in a star-studded international field. Pretty awesome stuff, Reed. Tell us about this event and running and reaching those kind of times and how you got there.
Oh yeah, so I started running, pretty young, but I didn't really see my potential until university. That's when I started training a lot more. And then I competed at the 5K and 10K and got to the world champs. And I eventually found the marathon, which I think is my strongest event. And I luckily qualified for the Olympics in 2012, and then again in 2016. I ran 2:10 on 3 different occasions. The video now is from Fukuoka in 2016. This was it was a really memorable race for myself because 2016 Olympics didn't go the way I wanted it to. I finished 23rd. So it was fine, but it wasn't quite what I was looking for. And then I was able to run this marathon in December of 2016, and I ended up with the second fastest time in North America that year, and just really kind of capping off the training that I thought I could have, or the race I could have put forward at the Olympics. So it was a really neat race, and I think I was 20th or so, like at the halfway point, but just ran through the field and finished 7th overall. And it wasn't far off of my personal best as well, which was great. And now I've transitioned to the ultra marathon as I've had enough of. I've just been running marathons for the last 12 years, and I feel like I'm looking for a new adventure. So now I'm doing races that are much further than 42K.
Right. So ultra marathon, I know the distance kind of ranges a little bit, but what kind of distances have you run in these ultra marathons?
Yeah, the first ultra marathon I did was in August, and I did a 110K race. It took and a very technical terrain too. It's way longer than John does. Huge learning curve. And then the race I'm doing on Friday here in Reunion is 72K, and also very hilly. It's basically up and down volcanoes, and it's not just another 50K. It's which would probably be another 2 hours on a run. This is going to take me like 8 hours to do. So it's ultra.
72 Ks up and down volcanoes, and that's a shorty. Not like the 110 kilometer runs you're doing. How long is it going to take you to run that?
Yeah, hopefully it takes me under 8.5 hours to do this one. And ultras, of course, they range. I mean, I don't know if there is a limit to them, but you often see the 160K being a kind of a contested ultra distance. They have 160K here in Reunion. I opted for the 72K. Still working my way up.
Yeah, work your way up. That's right. Start at 72K and work your way up. That's good. Well, I mean, as a 14-time Canadian champion in various events and the marathon, two-time Olympian, what kind of advice have you got for somebody who's going to be taking part in the Step Up for Wayside, like to get themselves prepared for a 5K run, walk, whatever you choose?
Of course, like with anything like walking or running, the best thing to do is be consistent with your training. So you set out a schedule, and whether that's to do it 3 times a week, four or 5 times a week, just doing it for a few weeks leading up to the event. We don't have much time left, but we have a few weeks left, and if you can go out, and you don't have to do 5K every time, of course, you can just do 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then by the time the event comes, you'll be much more ready for it than if you just kind of wait for November 6th to try a 5K off the couch.
Well, yeah, I highly recommend that you do something before then. It's probably a good idea. What about you, Mike? Any tips?
Yeah, I think I would listen to the pro. I wouldn't even try to step on Reed's toes in terms of advice, but consistency is certainly probably key. And I would advise too to try to get out once or twice. At least test the shoes out before you get out to First Ontario Place, I believe it is, for the race. Yeah, so definitely listen to Reed.
What's the circuit look like?
Well,
First Ontario Place, First Ontario Center.
First Ontario Center. There'll be people who will walk indoors, so which is nice. There'll be some stuff set up during the event, and there'll be an MC, so it will keep you occupied. I think it's about is it 3 laps for one inside the around the concourse there, and there'll also be an outdoor run if weather permits. So I will lead a run. And don't worry, it won't be fast. It's, no one's getting left behind type run. And we'll just go to the Bayfront and back, and that's also 5K. So if the weather's nice and we don't want to just be running circles, then we'll do a little route. So people, I think we'll open up at 10 a.m. And then at 10:30, the walk and run start on November 6th.
Well, this that sounds like a lot of fun, and obviously, Reed, you're not going to decide. Well, I feel like going 72 Ks today.
Strict 5K, and I'm not going for my personal best. We're not going to 4-minute 5K here, where it's going to be very, very easy, and there'll be probably other runners who will know the route, so no one will get left behind type run.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, emphasis on fun, right, in this fun run. I want to thank you guys for stepping up, and stepping up for Wayside and stepping up and coming on the program. Just we have some other details about the event. You can go to the Wayside House website, which is at www.waysidehouse.com. Also on Instagram, Wayside House Hamilton. Facebook, Wayside House Hamilton, Twitter at Wayside House Hamilton. You can go to waysidehouse.ca to register as an individual. You can register as a team, or you can just make a donation. Wayside's been around since 1967. Each year they help some 420 men find recovery, and that changes lives, right? We know how that works. It changes our lives. It changes the lives of those around us. It helps other people, for generations. It can make a difference. And you talked about AA earlier on, Mike, and you talked about how 2 guys started this thing, and today there's millions of people worldwide that are sober as a result, and it's a pretty awesome thing. And there's a lot of ways you can help, and I want to thank you guys for being on the program and for stepping up for Wayside, and we'll see you on November 6th.
Yeah, thank you for having us there.
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com.
Yes, it's time for my COSA Swiss Pick of the Week, and here we go. Last week I went to Westminster Raceway in London for a look at the number 3 horse, Outlaw Badlands, at 9-2 in the 6th race, a pace. Well, Outlaw Badlands, with Jason Ryan driving, made a massive move at the half, and he would never look back, cruising and pulling away for a win over Artistic Pick, the even money favorite, who was second. I had a $5 win place, and the exactor got them both right. So now, this week, we're heading back to Mohawk for Sunday night's first race, opening leg of the Harvest Series for 2-year-old filly Pacers. And I'm going to take the 2-horse, Day to Party, with Doug McNair in the buggy, trained by Ben Wallace. We'll go $5 win place. I'm also going with a $1 exacta box, 236. Thanks to last week's win, I got my bankroll back up to $110. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Well, what an incredible story at Mohawk on Saturday night. The $225,000 gold super final for 2-year-old colts and geldings. Ken Middleton, who calls the races at Mohawk, had his own colt in the race. Blah, 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 who he trains and co-owns, a horse that was coming off a couple of disappointing breaks, went off at 37-1. Didn't look good when they headed down the stretch with Bob Blah Blah near the back of the pack. Driver Sylvan Fillion found some room on the outside. Let's pick up the call from Mr. Middleton.
Trying to find a seam is Magical Arthur. Deep stretch, Stonebridge Helios. Outside is Aaronwood Eve. Here comes Magical Arthur and Bob Blah Blah. About time, Bob. Bob Blah Blah rallies by for a super final score in 153.
Yes, Bob Blah Blah paid $77 to win. The 10-5 exact was worth $1,096. The try paid over $3,600. And yes, Mr. Middleton was quite excited about that victory.
Well, that's kind of what I want to do. I took it upon myself to make it a goal. We all have goals here at Woodbine Entertainment. Mine was to bring more people in the industry. There's a lot of people that are curious about getting involved in horse ownership. You can do it on a big scale. You can do it on a small scale. The stable.ca proved that, and since other people have done that. So I've made it kind of a goal of mine to try and bring in some great people and enjoy, this great sport, because it really is fun. It's fun whether you're sitting in the grandstand eating a hamburger or betting a couple bucks or getting involved in horse ownership and doing the same thing. So I'd encourage everybody. Now's the time of year. All the yearlings are selling right now. So if you're ever curious about getting involved, now's the time to do it.
Great job, Ken. Congratulations. Well, the Leafs are in good shape, 2-1, despite playing without Austin Matthews, who is getting set to return against the Rangers. Peter Mrazek was hurt, and due to cap restraints, the Buds brought in University of Toronto goaltender Alex Bishop to back up on Jack Campbell. Fortunately, Campbell did not get hurt. We didn't get a chance to see Alex Bishop between the pipes, which would have been a little scary. Meanwhile, a big night for the Scarborough natives. Wayne Simmons and Michael Bunting both found the back of the net.
We got such a tight community in Scarborough. All the boys, I know all the guys that came up my age, within my group, and even all the younger guys and older guys, we always look out for each other. So, we got a nice tight network, and it's nice to have another guy, on your team from Scarborough, that's for sure.
If you come from Scarborough and you hear other people come from Scarborough, you're always pretty close with them, and it's just, the lifestyle growing up there. People, you grind to get what you get. It was definitely a cool experience tonight.
All right, go Scarborough. With quarterback Vernon Davis Jr. out with a broken bone in his shoulder, while the Montreal Alouettes had some big shoes to fill, Matthew Schultz came in to engineer the game-winning drive last week against the Red Blacks, and in his first CFL start this week, Schultz got the job done again. Als bounced Ottawa for the second straight week to take over second in the East at 5-4. The Argos lead the way at 6-3. They had the bye. Schultz's job as starter could be short-lived, however. The Owls have acquired veteran pivot Trevor Harris from Edmonton for defensive end Antonio Simmons. That's a big get for the Alouettes. Watch out for them come playoff time. Thanks to a sensational effort by Alphonso Davies, the Canadian men's soccer team is now on course to nail down a World Cup berth. Big 4-1 win over Panama. Next up, Costa Rica and Mexico mid-November in Edmonton. How's that for a home field advantage? The Raptors have set their opening roster for first home game in 20 months. Sam Decker and Isaac Bonga both made the grade. Ish Wainwright did not make it. The Raptors now have their roster set at the NBA League Max of 15 with a pair of two-way contracts. Well, Hockey Helps the Homeless is your chance to play with the pros for a great cause and our charity of choice. Enter your team today or enter as an individual at hockeyhelpsthehomeless.com. Suit up, skate up, score with some of the all-time NHL greats at various locations across the country. Feed the hungry, help them get back on their feet, help keep young folks off the street. 14 tournaments nationwide. The first stop is just around the corner, October 29th in Waterloo. Then it's up to Calgary. There's stops in York Region, Halifax, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Peel, Barrie, Saskatoon, Montreal, Durham Region, Bay Street, Edmonton, and London. The event has helped raise over $2.5 million for those who really need it. HockeyHelpsTheHomeless.com. And we close the program with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. I highly recommend them all. A reminder that the show is now available also on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, as well as Spanglish Network and Zingo TV. Also, like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. Once again, thanks to Humble and Fred for being on the show, as well as Reed and Michael, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when Gentleman Jerry Cooney joins the program. We'll see you then. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Brought to you by MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the needs of our clients in the private, public, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to doing business and personalized strategies to help people and organizations succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, our team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca to learn more.